Greetings, fellow gardeners. All successful gardeners know that when starting a project, first off, you need good seed. The seed needs to be put into good soil. After that, it requires fertilization and aftercare, like weeding. Then we have to determine when it is that the crop is actually becoming perfect for picking, so that it's absolutely ripe and totally perfection. No crop is ready before it's time. Most gardeners I've run across understand all of these concepts. There's really nothing mysterious about any of them. But when you think about it, I realize that the exact same principles that apply to a successful garden also apply to the growth of human ideas. That growing ideas is pretty much the same as growing fruits or vegetables. In the case of the seed, you always want to acquire your seed from an excellent source. You can get bad seed, and that'll start things off wrong. In the case of an idea, the seed is your imagination. Depending how fertile that imagination is will depend on what sorts of ideas come forth. There's the filtering, just like reading a seed catalog, how you look at the different seeds and go, oh, not this one, not that one. Oh, that's for me. I love that. This is perfect, you know. The same goes with ideas. The mind is constantly generating a total seed catalog full of them. If you're a lucky person, you have more ideas than you have time to use. And so it's sort of filtering through the ideas that come from your mind to decide what is the good seed. What is that germ of truth that to actually take it out and place it into the field and watch it grow. In the case of the garden, the seed is placed in good soil, high quality garden soil, and so most likely it will flourish. In the case of an idea, the soil is pretty much the rest of your life. The field that your ideas set in are the field that your life creates. Some of us have very, very rich and fertile lives. Others have poor, rocky, thin lives, and so on. And so really, the better the field that the idea is placed in, the more likely it's going to develop into something positive. After a seed is put into the ground and it begins to grow, or an idea is placed into your life and you start working with it, it's going to require care. And so if it's dry, you're going to have to water it. The plants generally will require some kind of fertilizer, and so you have to put down some compost and some manures and so on to be able to get it to grow properly. When it comes to ideas in your life, it's pretty much your persistence and your diligence at pushing these ideas along, even sometimes if it seems like you're going uphill with them. But it's you getting behind them, being the force that will move them. It's that human will, the active human will, is the manure that fertilizes a good idea. And of course, once the crops begin growing in the field, things are well developed, generally weeds will spring in. It's not unusual, or pests might show up. You got a good delicious plant over there, it's a pretty good chance something else is going to want to eat it. You have nice fertile soil, pretty good chance that seeds that fall in it from other plants that you didn't desire are going to spring up, and so you'll get weedy. So you got to go through with the hoe, you know, and work with this stuff, keep it down, do something to mitigate the insects that might get into the crop. When it comes to your ideas, where they're growing in your life, what I would call the weeds in an idea's development really are the negativities, both your own or the ones that you will adopt and take in from others. I've often said that I have stopped asking other people opinions about my ideas because most of the time I get a negative feedback. It's really common. Check this. It's really, really common. Tell somebody, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, that, or the other thing, and oh, geez, usually they come up with 100 different reasons why that's not a good idea, you know. And of course, if you're the sort of person who is swayed by other people's thoughts, then you may adopt that, bring it into your own life, and it ends up becoming the weeds that will prevent the good growth of the idea in your life. Your own mind generates plenty of negativity. We have our doubts, and so on, and wonder whether we're really on the right track or so. Well, these negativities within the field are really the weeds that will limit how well and how fast that idea might develop. And so every once in a while, I will bounce an idea off someone I trust. On occasion, I do get some good advice. It does happen. It's not 100% that I get back negativity and things that kind of stifle my energy. So there are people, and you probably know who they are, the people who, when you ask them what they think of something, might give you positive, honest feedback. I think the best example in my life of that was the time I asked my stepfather, Ed, what he thought about me going in to being an organic farmer. And Ed really didn't have any opinions one way or the other about whether I should or should not do that. He did not inject his own thoughts on the subject, which is the important point. Instead, what he told me was that whatever the idea you have, if you believe in it and you want to see it come to fruition, you have to move on it, because life has a way of getting in your way and pushing you past things so that you never really accomplish what you set out to accomplish, unless you're persistent and diligent about making sure that when you have an idea and you believe it's a good one, that you go for it. So basically what Ed told me is, Bill, go for it. And that was the best advice I ever heard in my life. I have applied that in I don't know how many things, from rock climbing to, building a hot rod, planting a garden, starting a business. I don't hesitate. I seldom hesitate, just long enough to be certain that I know this is what I want to do. Because hesitation has its cost, and it will defeat you. So the analogy is also comparable in the garden. If you're raising tomato seedlings, for instance, and you intend to put them out there in the garden and make them fruit, well, there's a time window. So 4 to 6 week old tomato plant transplant is absolutely the finest. Any transplant past that may give a slightly earlier crop, but it's going to be diminishing returns on yield and vigor. The tomatoes are not as good once you've passed the 6th week. So it's again, strike now while the tomatoes are hot. Move forward with the project and get it implemented, because the sooner you get the plants from the table out into the ground and growing, the better your chances of success. Same goes in life. It's taken me a while to realize this stuff, but as I sit around and I look back across my life, people tell me often that I'm successful at almost everything I undertake. Now that isn't true, because I generally tend to dump and not talk about most of the stuff that went wacky and haywire. I've done a lot of dumb things, believe me. I'm a human being, and so I'm entirely capable of extreme stupidity. On the other hand, it is true that so much of what I really believe in happens, and to the point where I find it's amazing sometimes. I'm dumbfounded by how fast it can happen, how easily it can happen. Currently, we've moved here to Hawaii, and I've had to start a brand new business. I was doing nursery operation in California, then it was landscape design and horticultural consulting. After we moved here, predominantly I've gone back into farming and nursery again, as I had been in before. And I expected it to take quite a while. I really did. I thought, well, you know, it's a good idea. Hawaii is a suitable environment for this, and I know pretty much what I'm doing, and so on. So I believed in myself, and I didn't have too many self-doubts over the issue. But the other day, I looked back at just how fast this has developed. I have now been here living in this place for exactly 1 year nonstop. Prior to that, I'd been coming and going all the time, so we've had this place a long time, but my permanent residency here on the island is only a year old. And the business has been good. I'm selling plants. Neighbors come for them. I have people on YouTube looking for my seeds and plants. I just did my first delivery of a large-scale delivery of wholesale plants to the mainland. Finally got myself set up with FedEx and with the county and so on. And when I stopped for a moment and I looked at how this was working out, and I was pulling checks out of the mailbox coming for this stuff, and I said, man, how did that happen? It's like there was a matrix waiting to hold these ideas. It was as if my thoughts met a need, and that can definitely happen. It happens in the garden too. When you choose a crop that's exactly right for the environment you're living in, you find that it becomes very, very easy. All you have to do is get the seed in the ground and just make sure nothing goes wrong, and it just happens. Well, that's kind of what can happen with your ideas in life. For me, it has. And you got the right idea at the right time in the right place, and there it goes. Well, just like with nature, though, and biology, there are huge cycles out there operating. There's the gravity of the planet, there's the weather here on Earth, there's the sun, you know, and I mean, even the calcium in my bones. This stuff came from the core of a dead star that went supernova millions and billions of years ago. All right, everything in the entire universe is completely interconnected and moving in and out of everything else all the time. There's nothing here on Earth that started here on Earth. Everything on Earth came from somewhere out there. Well, and the habitat, though, it's if you go out and you plant trees, you take a bunch of pine trees and you put them out in a suitable environment, you get them out there and make sure they took. After the fact, you can almost walk away from that planting, and huge cycles of flywheel action within our environment begin to take hold. As the trees grow, the grass underneath begins to die away in the shade, the needles mulch and acidify the soil, mushrooms that associate with pine trees begin to grow in the needles, animals and insects that like pine trees, birds that like that kind of a forest move in. They begin to make droppings and live and die and breed within the forest. The deer move in, and on and on and on and on. Squirrels come. Originally it might have been an old worn out cow pasture, but eventually you end up with an entire forest with a complete ecology. There'll be wildflowers, mushrooms, birds, bees, bugs, and so on, all associated to the pine trees. This happens, and anybody who's ever done this, I'm sure, will agree with the idea that there's huge energies out there only waiting for the germ of a single human idea and the action of my hands, back, and legs, putting it into process. And then I usually am able to just sit back and go, check it out, because it just starts to unfold. And so the same goes with our ideas too. When it might be a business, when it might be a lifestyle, whatever the idea might be. If it's the good idea and it's placed right in the right way, there are huge cycles of energy that will push that idea from behind. Right now I'm asking myself questions with my nursery operation here. Just how big do I want this thing to grow? It has tremendous potential for growth and development here. And I retired a year ago. And I only took this work up just because I needed something to keep busy, and I needed a little extra scratch in the wallet, you know, and so I didn't want to have to suffer. Well, it's gone way beyond that already. And I've met all my neighbors because of this, and so on and so forth. There's just huge chain reactions of things that are occurring because of this idea. They're mostly all positive, and the only questions I really have about it are, am I willing to work this hard? Because I feel like I'm getting pushed from behind, and this happens to me a lot. I guess it's just having the right idea in the right place at the right time, and then there's the synchronicities around it. Oftentimes, some of these ideas and what comes from them just doesn't really feel like it's necessarily me who's thinking them up, or I'm implementing them, but I have feels like there's so much energy that comes in around them to make these things move. It's no wonder people give thanks for their lives. It's no wonder. Feeling thankful for the good we have in our lives is an excellent state of mind and spirit. I tend to feel less responsible for my success and more thankful for my good fortune. So, there you have it today, folks. It is the analogy between growing successful gardens and taking your ideas in life and making them real. Life is a plastic commodity. It is clay in our hands. We are lucky if we have an opportunity to live in a country like the one I live in, where we're free to pretty much to do what it is that we think we wish to do within the limits of the law and so on. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this insightful. Aloha. Happy gardening.